Hello to everyone. Thank you all for joining me at this time. My name is Shavi Zane, and I'm coming on to do a part two in regards to pornography. Okay, so we had the part one, let's talk about it. Now we are on part two, let's talk about it again. So we finished up in the last message, in the last discussion. We were actually looking into how pornography affected the men versus the women, how it affected couples that are engaging in pornography together, how it affect people who are single that engage in pornography, and then also how what the whole agenda was behind pushing it into the masses. Because again, as you know, there are millions of people who watch pornography daily. Okay, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so there's a lot of people that are feeding their sexual energy to the spiritual Jezebel, which is pornography is a large part of that. Now you have other aspects of the spiritual Jezebel which exist within strip clubs, okay, um, certain movies, music, videos. It's many different facets to this beast, but pornography is one of the major ones because so many people from young to old find themselves heavily engaged in it and not being able to see the spiritual ramifications behind involving themselves in something that can become very, very dark very quickly. Okay. And so what I want to do at this time is to follow up in part two in regards to some of the things that I was not able to touch bases on. One of the things that really came to mind that I was not able to speak on is how pornography affects the creative nature. Okay, when man and woman come together, generally the sexual energy is to be used to create. Much of the time is used to procreate. Obviously, not every single time are you creating a human, but you are creating a very powerful energy. And many people do not realize that. A lot of people just see it as a means to create some form of stimulation that allows them to have this orgasm or this climax, and they just know that it puts them to sleep. It feels good in the moment and it's a bonding tool. But people don't realize that you are actually creating something when you are utilizing your sexual energy. And for those people who do not recognize that they are creating something energetically, then it's that sexual beast, especially if you're very low vibrational in energy just overall. Like, let's just say you're in this energy of depression, or you're in this energy of fear or anger, aggression, bitterness, and you use sex as a means to create some sort of excitement within your life, then you're using that sexual energy in a very low vibrational frequency. Okay, you're using it in a way where it's not uplifting you. You're not using it to create anything with it. You're just using it as a means of releasing certain energy and feeling good in a moment. And so the so-called powers that were understand energy very well. Okay, they took this ancient wisdom and knowledge from our ancestors. We naturally understand these things. Okay, it's just we have to come back into remembrance because we've been asleep for so long. And so they have used this against the masses as a way of taking the sexual energy, especially through pornography, which is the specific subject that we're talking about now, taking the sexual energy and using it towards creating something that you yourself cannot see, but you can feel. You are experiencing it daily if you are still attached with that umbilical cord to the matrix. And many people have experienced it from the time of conception all the way until they take their last breath, because the enemy has figured out a way to harness in the energy. The so-called powers that were utilize energy. It is a very important tool in their witchcraft, in their dark magic that they use over the masses. And this is why I would really like for you all to go and see my video Spell Broken, because you'll be able to put some pieces together, as well as my other video that I did in regards to music being used as a military weapon. I want you all to go and see that one too if you have not seen it, because this particular subject, as we go a little bit deeper, is going to start to make sense when you put that together with what I'm saying here. Okay. So I want to get into how pornography and utilizing this lower level energy to bring stimulation is actually affecting conception. It is affecting the sperm. Okay, we're going to talk specifically about the sperm right now. Okay, now let's consider when a man is watching pornography. In that moment, of watching pornography, that man is becoming aroused, okay? And that energy of arousal, it takes multiple things, okay? First, you have the sound, okay? The sound is stimulating. You have the feelings that he's experiencing in that moment. You have the emotions, which is energy in motion that he is feeling in that moment. You have the thoughts that he is thinking in that moment. You have the visual aids that he is seeing and taking in and absorbing in that moment. And then you also have the vibration, okay, that he is projecting through his body in that moment, okay? So you have all of these things, which are all necessary tools to create. Now, when we talk about creation, we're talking about, from a metaphysical standpoint, what creation looks like, okay? Most of you know by now, because we're in the age of Aquarius, and so many of you are already awakened to the fact that thoughts create things, okay? Your thoughts are a large part of the creation process. What you focus in on, your dominant thoughts become a large part of what you create in your external environment, as well as what you create internally, okay? So your thoughts are very important. When we're talking about in that moment of a man being stimulated using pornography, in that moment, he's utilizing all of those things that I just mentioned, okay? And he is creating semen, okay? Now, what is semen? Because he's becoming aroused, okay? And in his arousal, he's creating semen, okay, which is ultimately going to meet with those sperm before he actually gets to the point of climax and ejaculation, okay? And so the semen that he is creating is a fluid, okay? And this fluid, semen, is 96 to 98% H2O, water, okay? Now, this is why I need you all to go back and watch my video as far as music being used as a military weapon, because in that video, I spoke with you all in regards to an experiment that was done by a Asian doctor by the name of Dr. Emoto. And in that experiment, I'm just going to go over it very quickly for those of you who did not see the video, but I really want to emphasize that you go and check it out. In the experiment, he was able to recognize that sound, music, frequencies have a large impact on water. And as I told you all, we are comprised of mostly water. The human being is comprised of about 70% water, 65 to 70% water. And so what we're talking about right now specifically is the semen, which is 96 to 98% water, okay? Now, this semen, let me tell you all about this experiment really quickly. He used two different experiments. He had one petri dish that had water in it, and he played into this water all positive affirmations, positive music, meaning music that's uplifting, that spoke about being love or being free or being happy, joyful, that type of energy. And he also played certain frequencies which are known to be in resonance with the human body or to be healing, like the 528 hertz, which is a DNA activation frequency. Okay, he played these into this water, and he froze the water. He put it up underneath a microscope, and all of that, it all had these beautiful, perfectly formed snowflakes. That's what it looked like underneath the microscope once it was frozen. The other petri dish consisted of water, but he played into that all negative music, things that will bring you down, that will make you feel anger or aggression or sadness or depression. He also played negative words of affirmations. I hate you. You're stupid. Those types of things. And he also played frequencies which go in opposition to the human body, such as 440 hertz. He froze that water. up underneath the in the petri dish, and then he looked at it through the microscope, and what he saw was that it looked like a bunch of really deformed blobs. Okay, it had no form, it had no shape, it had no structure, it was just blobs. Okay, now what he was able to come up with, the conclusion was that after doing this multiple times, he was able to conclude that water has memory, and that water takes on the form of whatever it is subjected to in terms of energy, because everything is energy. Thoughts are energy, your words are energy, music is energy. Okay, everything is energy. Water is energy. So whatever it takes on, whatever form it takes on based on what it is being told, whatever it's hearing in this environment, it takes on the form of that. That's what he was able to prove, where you have the snowflakes on one end from those things that are positive, and the blobs on the other end from those things that are negative. Now, when we talk about semen again is comprised of 96 to 98% water. Okay, so we're talking about pretty much, you might as well say it's all water, damn near. Excluding certain things, as well as about 1% of sperm. And so semen is water. Now think about this. The man is watching pornography. He's being stimulated in that moment using all of those creative energies that I mentioned to you: emotions, feelings, thoughts, the visual aids, the vibration, okay? Like I said, emotion, which is energy and motion. All of these things, his feelings, are all wrapped up in this particular moment of experiencing the pornography, right? And so in that moment, he's producing this fluid, which is semen. Okay, he's producing that through his arousal. And so here comes this fluid. Eventually, once he goes to have sex with his partner, okay, because we're talking about the ones that are watching pornography together. Once he goes to have sex with his partner, and she stimulates him enough to where, okay, he's already stimulated himself through watching the pornography, because it has, it has stimulated him to produce a lot of that semen. Okay, now he goes to have sex with his partner. She stimulates him, more, but ultimately he comes to that climax. Okay, so prior to the semen coming out, it meets with the sperm. Okay, because the sperm and the semen, they're not one and the same until he actually gets ready to ejaculate. And so the sperm meets with the semen, and now the sperm needs this semen in order to live, okay, because it needs to be in a warm, wet environment. And so the semen is what pretty much protects the sperm, so that it is alive by the time it gets ready to go to its destination, which is ultimately to meet an egg on the other side of the woman. But it doesn't always happen that way. But either way, that's what the sperm is for. And so now think about it. When I spoke to you all in regards to DNA, okay, because that's what sperm is. Sperm is DNA. The head of the sperm consists of the DNA. The head of the sperm, let me see something here so that I can be clear. The head of the sperm consists of DNA. Yes, the head contains the DNA. It contains the genetic information. Okay, so you got the sperm. It looks like a head, and it got a little wiggly tail at the end. The tail of the sperm, the middle part, like the body, as well as the tail, the body of the sperm is comprised of the mitochondria. The mitochondria is, remember, you all heard about this, is the powerhouse of the cell. So it is the energy. It is what fuels the movement of the cell. Okay, it gives off that energy, that ATP, to allow the tail to begin to move. Okay, so it gives it that energy that it needs to get to its destination. Okay, and so you have the head of the sperm, which contains the genetic information, the DNA, and then you have the tail of the sperm, which is the mitochondria. These things this sperm, millions of these sperm are housed in the semen that he sat there and created in his moment of watching pornography. Now, how does this all connect? Why am I bringing this up? Because the fluid that he produced during his time of arousal and watching pornography took on the energy and the messages that was being projected through the pornography. Now, what do we know? What did we learn about pornography? It's very low vibrational in energy. It is a tool that is used to create a certain type of stimulation, or to harness a certain type of stimulation from those people who watch it. But you're talking about you're receiving the energy from the people who you are actually watching. So these people have all types of spirits that are connected to them. And as they climax and as they express their creative energy, their vibration through the screen that you watch, you receive that. Your body takes on that energy, which is why you're able to become stimulated from watching them, because you're using the sound, your vision, your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings. All of these things are working in conjunction to create this fluid, okay, which ultimately for the man is going to meet with the sperm, which houses the DNA genetic information. And this sperm is going to sit in this fluid that was created through him watching the pornography. And so now, what did we learn in regards to what DNA does in terms of the environment that it's housed in? Well, DNA expresses itself based on the information that it receives from its environment. So now this sperm is sitting in an environment that was created through pornography, through stimulation of watching two people that are very low vibrational in energy. It could just be two. It could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who knows what type of porn him and his wife, his woman is watching, right? And so he has all of this low vibrational energy that his DNA, his sperm, is actually sitting in. And from the moment that it meets with that sperm, it has to stay with that same steam, that semen, okay, in order to stay alive. And then it eventually gets transformed. It swims over to the egg, okay. But consider again, DNA expresses itself based on its environment. So we're talking about sperm that's going to now express the energy that was harnessed and created during this time of him watching pornography. And if that sperm meets with an egg on the other side to actually conceive a child, then now that DNA expression, the way that DNA expresses itself, is going to come through. That child could be born with, an energy, a low vibrational energy that ultimately, as it continues to develop and grow, if you're not doing what's necessary to reverse or to decondition that child from the energy that it was conceived under, if you have not raised your vibrations, if you have not awakened and you're still operating in that low vibrational energy where you cannot train up your child or guide your child in a way where they're going to be more empowered and awakened, then that child is going to carry the information that it received during the time of conception. And that's a lot of dark energy and lower level spirits that is attached to that. And this is why the generations that are coming after us are so overly sexual. Okay. Obviously, those things and it doesn't help that the external environment to them, the music, the videos, even the doggone video games, many of the cartoons have many sexual subliminal messages in it. The dolls that are being created, in school, they're learning certain things. So it's like they can't escape it. And then outside of that, you go within, and on a DNA level, they was conceived through a low vibrational energy. And so this is how the beast, the Jezebel spirit, continues to live and flourish, because it is utilizing your creative energy, your sexual energy, which is extremely powerful, to create you're creating with it, especially when we're talking about group consciousness, millions of people that are creating with it, okay, with this low vibrational sexual energy, and conceiving through that children who will come out in that same low vibrational energy. They come out very much so asleep and in low vibrational energy, okay? And so I hope this is making sense for you all. Because as it was coming in to me, I was just like, okay, it's all starting to make sense in terms of ways for me to be able to express it to you, where you understand my thought process and how everything comes together, how everything is interconnected, and also understanding the mindset of the so-called powers that were, the enemy, who has strategically done this in a way where that they understand how this is affecting the masses on a DNA level. That they understand this because they have strategically, behind closed doors, been working on DNA, gene enhancement, or they've gene therapy, all types of stuff that they've been doing behind closed doors, but not to be of service to the masses, but to be of disservice so that they can remain in a position of power. Okay. And so understand that the genetic information, the DNA that is housed within the sperm, okay, it is receiving that information from the environment that it is in. And so that same fluid that was created, again, during that stimulation of watching the pornography, is now going to go and meet with that egg and produce an offspring that is based, where its genetic expression is largely contributed from that person's experience in the moment that it was conceived. So let me see what else is coming out here. That's pretty much how I wanted to express that. Okay. And also another thing that came to me because I was looking at the sperm, and I'm like, okay, the head, you got the head of the sperm, then you got the tail, the head and the tail. And what I kept hearing was, when the head becomes the tail, that scripture in regards to the head becoming the tail. And I'm like, you already know, in terms of, I've been doing some research, and I'm getting ready to start, because when I came across this particular passage, which is Deuteronomy, I believe it's hold on, y'all. Deuteronomy 28 verses 44. It spoke about the head becoming the tail, and I was just like, I couldn't get it off my mind in terms of how the two seem to correlate, because we're talking about the head of the sperm is what houses the genetic information. The tail of the sperm is what allows the sperm to move. It actually creates the energy. And so in that particular passage, it was pretty much saying that the enemy would be the head, and that the chosen, those who are supposed to be in a position of power, or who are supposed to be at least in a position of power over their own lives, would now become the tail. And so as the head, they get to create and dictate what pretty much the world would look like, and the tail would have to follow suit based on what the head has decided. And so when I put these two things together on a microscopic level, because that's on a macro scale, okay, on a much larger scale, but on a microscopic level, when we're talking about the sperm, okay, the head it contains the genetic information and can be largely influenced by its environment. And it ain't no if, ands, or buts about it. It is influenced and expressed based on its environment. And the tail is what gives the energy to actually bring movement, so that the head can go and implant itself where it is conceived, and where generations and offspring are born, and the expression of what those things, of what the humans that come from that looks like, is all based on that sperm, which has the head and the tail. And so that's looking at it from a much smaller scale, but when you really put it together, it makes sense in terms of generational curses and using certain energy that is around you to influence your genetic makeup and how your DNA expresses itself, and doing it in a way where it the agenda carries through from one generation to the next. It goes, this thing is so deep, there's so many layers to this thing, and the so-called powers that were understood that in being asleep, the awakening process means that you have to be able to decode, you have to be able to pierce through the veil to be able to see the multiple layers of this thing and how they have strategically used the tools that they have taken from us. They watered everything down and gave us a watered down version of what power and knowledge and wisdom is. Okay, they handed us something that they created so that we would remain in this position of fear and docile, and in submission and in inferiority, while they remain in this position of power, superiority, possessing the great the wisdom, in order to use it against us. Okay, and so this is why awakening at this time is so important, and to seek the knowledge from, speak with the Most High God and pray for wisdom, but also get silent enough to allow these things to come into remembrance. Because see, the thing is, when it comes to the way that I do things, all it takes is for me to have one thought, one light bulb to go off, and then suddenly everything clicks. Suddenly I just go and I say, okay, well, man, okay, now that question is what I need. It's almost as if to say, you don't need to have the answers. What you need is the right questions. When you have the right questions, the answers are always available to you. And so I always end up with the right questions. And I go and I might look up maybe 2 or 3 things, and suddenly I'm able to put together this whole picture. The whole picture comes alive and I'm able to see it. And so just understand what pornography does. So what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull a few cards, okay? Because I know last time, I got so deep into it that I didn't have, I went well over the time. And so the question that I wanted to look into at this time is, how is conception influenced by porn? So based on what I just told you all, we're going to look into it to see energetically what's being put out into the atmosphere, because that's what the cards do. They pick up on the energy that is being put out based on whatever it is that you are inquisitive about, okay? And so how is conception influenced by pornography, by those who watch pornography? How is conception influenced by this? Because I really feel that this is so much bigger, that the Jezebel spirit is able to conceive by taking on your sexual energy, and millions of people across the world, their sexual energy, because people don't know that they're wasting their sexual energy because they don't know what to do with it. And another thing that I also wanted to mention is there's a polarity to everything. So on the opposite end of that, when you are awakened and you understand the power of your sexual energy, the same way the enemy has fooled you and has you wasting your sexual energy to create the beast, and to help the beast to actually impregnate the beast is really what you're doing, okay? In a spiritual realm, you can use that same energy on a high vibrational scale. When you understand who you are, you take it and you do the opposite of that. You and your partner, who is hopefully also awakened in your high vibrational energy, and you have healed from many things, you take that energy and you literally create in your own minds, in your own emotions, in your own expression, the type of genetic information that you want to express through your sperm, through your egg, so that when they come together, you create a god, you create a goddess, you create a king, a queen, you create awakened beings, okay? Not sleep beings, but awakened beings. And so this is why the enemy wants to keep us asleep, because in understanding these things, we are powerful, and the generations that come from us is actually what determines whether or not this current structure will continue to stay alive, and whether or not that beast that it has created will continue to be fed, or whether it will be starved out, okay? Because the more that we create children who are a direct byproduct of this lower level energy in the spiritual realm, the longer the lifespan is for that thing. But in understanding, that does not mean that all is lost if you created children through pornography addictions or, in using that to stimulate yourself. It just means that now in your awakening, you have some undoing to do. You have some deconditioning to do. You have some work to do in terms of doing what's necessary to heal your children. As you heal yourself, you then become the healer for your children. That's how you break the generational curses. And so now you need to be exposing them to certain frequencies that's going to counter, and also releasing them from certain things that's going to further condition their minds into that sexual beast, that sexual lustful nature, and also giving them this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. As you gain it, you find ways to feed it to your children so that they too can ingest that. And as they continue to awaken their DNA and they take all of that information, and as their DNA is expressing itself, when they go to have their children, they'll be equipped and prepared with the right information in their DNA, within their spirit, okay, to create children and offspring that's also going to be awakened beings, okay, that's high vibrational in energy and that's not feeding the beast. Okay, so let's see. How is conception influenced by pornography? So lack of emotional availability. So when I see this as being a disconnection, like a detachment between the spiritual aspect of oneself and the physical nature of oneself. So it's like a detachment, okay, a lack of emotional availability. And also, yes, because most people, that's another thing that we was able to come into an understanding of when we pulled the cards, and when I pulled the cards in the first video, that many of those who are engaging in pornography, especially those who engage and overly engage in it, they are very emotionally detached, okay? And so you also pass that type of energy down to your children, where they come out to be emotionally detached as well, okay? What else? Women abuse sexual powers over men. So you create girls who use their sexual power as a way to control men. Especially if you consider, because if you have a woman, let's say a woman, for instance, who is strongly reliant on pornography, or has a pornography addiction, she might not see it as that way, but let's just say she engages in it often and she becomes pregnant, okay? And during her time of conception, while this baby is forming within her, she is actually still engaging in pornography, because just because you're pregnant don't mean that you stop watching porn, okay? And so she's still engaging in it. So consider that baby that is forming within this woman is also housed in fluid, the amniotic fluid, right? And so the fluid is what? H2O. And H2O has memory. And so as that child is developing and becoming larger, okay, and she's taking on that information and that lustful energy, the vibrations, the energy, the emotions, energy and motion, and all of these things, then that child, as it's forming, is also picking up on that energy as well. So not only did it potentially happen during conception, from the time that it came out of the sperm of its father, but then it continues in that energy during its time of growth within the mother. So this is why many of the young girls are coming out with such an overly sexualized energy. And they understand from a young age that they can use the sexual energy to control that of the masculine counterparts, masculine energy, okay? So what else do we have? Sexual confusion. This is how it's actually, wow. Wow. So now it makes me want to go back and look into history to see, when did the numbers increase in terms of homosexuality, okay? because we know that pornography became largely used in the and largely distributed to the masses in the early 1900s. At least by 1953, the mid 1900s, it became very popular, okay, through video. And so now it makes me want to go and look. That's why I say having the right questions. It's not always about having the answers, about having the right questions. And then when you go and seek further, then suddenly it clicks and it's like, okay, now I get it. Because one thing that we have heard is that they say that homosexuality is genetic. It is something that you are born with, right? But we just spoke about what just came through in this message is that when you are watching these things and you're using the visual aid of pornography, you're taking that in, you're feeling the emotions, the vibration, the feelings, okay, and the thoughts. All of these things come together to create something. And then the semen, the fluid that is created from that stimulation through that pornography, then houses the DNA. The DNA picks up on the energy. It picks up on the information of the environment that it is housed in, which is that water that has memory, right? The sperm, the semen has memory. The sperm holds the genetic information, and so it expresses itself based on what information it has picked up on from its environment, which is the water that it's housed in. And so consider that if that father, we're talking about someone who is making soul attachments with people who have very low vibrational energy, who are porn stars. So many of the porn stars, you do know that they have sex with both men and women. Many of the women are bisexual. Okay, they're lesbian or bisexual. Many of the men are also bisexual. And even if they don't claim it, they will definitely take some money and they will definitely go and have sex with other men, because for them, it's all about using their sexual energy to create abundance for themselves. And so many of them do not discriminate in terms of who they have sex with. And so consider that you're taking on that energy, and that's what's in your mind and in your emotions in that time of conception. So when that DNA goes to express itself, and as that child is conceived and formed, then it is born with confusion because of the spirit that is attached to it during conception. This thing is deep, y'all. We're talking about from a spiritual aspect. Everything takes place in a spiritual aspect. It is all created in the spiritual realm before it manifests into the physical. And so now we have a direct connection with why sexual confusion is on the rampage, why it's so prevalent throughout the world, because it all begins with the thoughts of the person who is actually having sex and during the time of conception. This is deep. This is really deep, y'all. Now it's just, I don't know if we need a part 3, but this is deep. We have sexual perversions also coming out as a way that those children that are conceived through the energy of pornography, sexual perversions, okay? And so then you end up with children or young teenagers who have certain fantasies, certain perversions, okay? Sexual confusion, lack of emotional availability, woman abusing sexual powers over the men. And that, going back to that, we see that is starting at a younger and younger age, because even when you look at the music in terms of the new generation of music, pretty much all of the women who put music out there are overly sexualized. Okay, we don't have any more Lauryn Hills or Jill Scotts like that, or India Arie's. Okay, Erykah Badu's, people who are tasteful and classy in the way that they at least present themselves outwardly. Okay, they have a certain amount of morals and standards. They don't feel like they have to overly sexualize themselves in order to present their talent to the world. But you have the newer artists like Nicki Minaj or Beyonce's or Cardi B's. These are the newer generations who are putting an energy out there that is overly sexualized and using that because they know that they have a certain amount of power over men who are also weakened to their sexual energy because they come through in their conception, they're coming through with all of this sexual energy and this sexual lust and aggression because obviously that's how they was conceived, through the sexual lustful energy. This is deep, y'all. So now we might even have to do a part 3 in terms of the polarity of this and how we can use this this knowledge, because it might not be new to everyone, but how we can use this knowledge to actually procreate and to create in the moment of conception, to create children, new the generations that come after us that are actually going to be empowered, awakened, gods, goddesses, kings, and queens. Okay, grief is also another thing. Okay, grief. That's that low vibrational energy that comes with that shame, that guilt, depression, that type of energy. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to pull this one. We have a disconnect from the Most High. And so that is expected because you're talking about anytime you have skeletons in the closet, anytime your thoughts are in direct opposition to what the Most High has naturally created you to be, okay? And you have sexual confusion. You don't know what you like. You don't know what you want. You have sexual perversions. You have these thoughts and you can't really conceptualize or understand where they're coming from. You have this lack of emotional availability, so you're not able to use your sexual energy in a way where it's love that's connected with it. It's you're completely detaching the love aspect from the sexual act, and then it just becomes an act, something that you do to create pleasure for yourself or to use it to your advantage to get power over someone else. Okay, abusing your power, and so all of this energy is going to automatically cause a person to have a disconnection from the Most High. And even outside of the children that are conceived through this energy, we're talking about those who are adults who have sexual perversions or who have these this lustful energy, this insatiable appetite for pornography. You're naturally going to have a disconnection from the Most High because a large part of you feels as if you're not worthy of having a connection to the Most High because you're operating in such a low vibrational energy. Okay. So let me see what else is coming out really quickly in terms of how this is affecting the conception. Okay. How conception is affected or influenced through pornography. So we have the 10 of Pentacles coming out in the reverse. So family structures. This is all about, okay, and I also want to show you this one. Justice is here. Family structures. This is all about inheritance, okay? Inheritance goes beyond the material wealth that you gain, okay? Inheritance is also what you inherit genetically. The genetic information, what you inherit through as you are conceived and what you are producing as you replicate yourself, as you create, and the generations that follow you and that follow you, that information that is received is a large part of your inheritance. And so people end up losing out on the inheritance, okay, because they're giving away their creative energy to a beast. They're giving away their creative energy to the enemy. The enemy takes that creative energy that you yourself waste on lower vibrational energy, and it uses it at its advantage and to your disadvantage, where you end up losing your spiritual gifts, your spiritual wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, your spiritual connection to the Most High. That's all a part of your inheritance, okay? That's a massive part of your inheritance, because on a spiritual level, it means you rising into this understanding and this higher level of consciousness. And on a physical level, it means that DNA, in terms of DNA activation and the way that your DNA expresses itself, is going to determine the type the quality and the type of offspring that you are creating based on how connected you are in terms of the spiritual aspect of yourself. And so you end up losing out on your inheritance from one generation to the next, because as you can see, you got the parents, you got the grandparents, you got the children. Okay. And so this is all about inheritance that's being passed down. But with this coming out in reverse, you're feeding it to a system, you're feeding it to a structure that is taking your inheritance and using it at their disposal, because they have the sword of truth. They understand how energy works. They understand the laws of cause and effect. They understand how to balance that thing out and how to use it to create power for themselves and a submissive, inferior state for you all. And they've been working on this for generations, okay? For a very long time, they have been using this method as a way of stealing your spiritual inheritance. And it affects you on the physical level. And when it affects you physically, you have all of these different energies that you're depressed in that's keeping you in this low vibrational energy. So then in turn, it also affects your physical inheritance, which is that material value that you would have in terms of like the monetary things, okay? The material things. That's also affected, because if you are someone that's in grief, if you are in fear, if you are in shame, if you are in guilt, you will never rise into your divinity and understanding that you're the co-creator of your life and that you can create financial abundance for yourself. And so you always end up in a position of submission of underneath someone else who's making millions of dollars while you're making $9 or $10 an hour. And you feel in your own mind, you feel that this is what you were born into and this is what life is all about, because there's a part of you that cannot awaken to understanding anything any higher than that, because you're so disconnected. Again, lack of emotional availability. You're so disconnected from the Most High that you don't understand that raising your vibrations to the highest vibration of all, which is the love frequency, okay, is what actually allows you to create in the spiritual realm and in the physical realm. What's at the bottom of the deck is also the Page of Cups in reverse. Pages also deal with children. And so it's that energy of, and the fish in the cup, that's all about what? Conception. We all know that fishes mean conception. And so in the reverse, it's causing your children to come out in direct opposition to what is necessary to create generations that are going to be strong and empowered, that's going to be able to come together and create a new system, a new justice system that's actually going to be from a space of honor, integrity, and true power, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And so it's like you end up you give away all of your creative power, your wisdom, your genetic information is all being given away to this one person while he crumb feeds you and determines what justice is for you. He determines what justice looks like for you and what balance looks like for you and what structure is. He determines the rules, okay? And decides to crumb feed you your inheritance, your rightfully God-given inheritance that in your asleep state you gave to him. So now we have to reverse this, and it's our responsibility as those of us who have healed and have awakened and that understand the power that we possess. It's our responsibility to now reverse this, okay? Reverse this energy. So let me see. This is also what we are passing down. Children who are not, who are very stressed out, who are not able to, who have a lot of thoughts, okay, overthinking, a lot of stress, a lot of depression. Like we said, we already saw grief coming out here. And so also children who cannot persevere, children who give up very easily. Yeah, a lot of scattered aggression, a lot of scattered thoughts here, okay? And this is what it's showing you, because this in the upright is someone who does not give up. This is someone who keeps persevering in spite of what they've been through. But it's like, it's almost as if we are creating children who are becoming weaker in their ability to persevere in spite of their circumstances. So let me see. I'm going to pull from a different deck, because a very good question that someone asked me was, what can I tell you all in order to come out of this energy? Well, first we need to know what actually made you gravitate to it. So let's see. What is what was the leading factor that actually caused the masses, or is causing the masses, to gravitate to pornography? Okay, because you have to understand that it all starts from something deeper than just wanting to stimulate your partner or wanting to add extra spark to your relationship. Is deeper than that, because someone who is confident in themselves, that knows who they are, knows that you don't need someone else to give you instruction on how to please your partner. You naturally possess what you need, because the two of you are vibing well enough to be able to pick up on each other's rhythm, to be able to pick up on what the other person likes, okay? But there has to be an insecurity. There has to be something there. Or let's just see. Let's see what comes out. And then I'll give you all some advice in terms of how to release yourselves from this energy. So this is I am love, I am open to love, love is abundant, the heart chakra. So a large part of what causes people, the masses, to gravitate to pornography is not feeling as if they are worthy of love, not feeling as if love is infinitely abundant and available to them. And so they use sex as the dominant energy in order to bring cohesiveness in their relationships. And so they gravitate to pornography in order in hopes that it's going to create a bond that they themselves feel that they're not able to create, because they don't possess what's necessary. Holding back your truth, difficulty expressing yourself. This is dealing with the throat chakra. So this is all about not being able to communicate. That's very important when it comes to your sexual bond and in any partnership, is being able to communicate and verbalize what it is that you want. What is your desires? But when your throat chakra is blocked, you're not able to express or communicate those things. You hold back your truth. You hold back your sexual expression. And so you end up watching pornography in hopes that they'll communicate to your partner on behalf of you. Okay, so you're watching the pornography, you're watching your partner, and you're seeing what stimulates them and what gets them aroused and turned on, and you're allowing someone that's operating from a low vibrational energy to communicate to you how to please your partner, when in fact, that's a very unrealistic way, because even your partner understands that it is an overstimulation that is happening through the pornography. Is not a realistic thing. So now you got to go into acting. Now you got to go into making noises and sounds and squeaks and all types of stuff that that don't even naturally come from you during the sexual act, okay? But you're so busy trying to mimic something that's low vibrational in energy in order to please your partner, because a large part of you is not able to communicate to your partner what it is that you want, and communicate in terms of asking them what it is that they want. And so working on your throat chakra is very important. Ways that you can do that is to use things like lapis lazuli. That's any blue crystal is great for the throat chakra. Wearing blue, meditating on the color blue, humming is a great way to open up your throat chakra. Speaking your truth, expressing yourself unapologetically, not being disrespectful. Obviously, you have to still operate from a space of honor and integrity, but speaking your truth more often, standing your ground and speaking your truth is very important. In spite of what someone else says or how you expect them to respond, you want to be able to verbalize and speak your truth. The more you suppress and hold back your feelings, your thoughts, and your emotions, the more your throat chakra becomes blocked off. And another way that people end up with a blocked throat chakra is when they was unheard as a child. If you was not able to express yourself, or if you felt that every time you did express yourself, you was, placed in the shadows, or you was, brushed off and not heard. So in terms of, let's see what else is coming out. Abandonment issues, the root chakra. That's another reason why people end up turning to pornography. So when we're talking about relationships, if you are, right at the bottom it says neglected or isolated. So this is also the root chakra. And so from the root, from the beginning, from the very beginning in your childhood, I feel, or maybe not you, but I'm talking about the masses who gravitate to this, have dealt with abandonment issues and have felt neglected or isolated in their childhood. And so a lot of people gravitate to pornography in hopes that, again, it's going to keep that cohesiveness in the relationship, and that if they're able to stimulate their partner more, or become more of a freak in the bedroom, that somehow this person is not going to leave them. But they end up finding that the exact opposite happens, because the more that you bring this into your relationship, that low vibrational energy, the more you're going to find that you end up getting abandoned or cheated on, because now you are awakening a carnal nature within yourself and within your partner that overstimulates them to the degree where what you do then is no longer enough. Now they need more women, okay? They need more of a variety, or you need more men, you need more selections, you need different sizes, okay? Um, and so then a lot of people do this to avoid having to feel that energy of abandonment or isolation or neglection, but they end up calling it to them instead. And much of the time, these things happen because it's a direct mirror reflection for those things that you need to release. And so if you find that this has been a pattern for you, where you have introduced pornography into your relationships because you see it as being a bonding tool or something that is a additional sexual stimulant, then you might want to reconsider all of these things that have been expressed in part one and in this video, as well as those things that come to you intuitively, as well as the lessons that you have had to learn in seeing that pornography and bringing that type of energy into your relationships. It does the direct opposite. It does not keep a relationship bonded, but it actually causes an emotional disconnect and a desire to express and to experience and to explore other people, places, and things, okay? And so the root chakra, ways to heal your root chakra, is all about getting grounded, getting back connected with nature, ingesting live fruits and vegetables that's actually going to activate your DNA, and your genetic expression is going to be based on live things rather than things that are dead. But then also putting plants around your house is actually great for your root chakra. Meditating on the color red, listening to root chakra frequencies, sitting in the grass, or putting your back up against a tree, or planting your feet into the grass. These are ways to help to heal your root chakra. Nature, that's the best way to heal your root chakra. So let's see what else is coming out. Spend time with children and random acts of kindness. So this will be dealing with the heart chakra. And then we also have fear of losing control. Okay, so the heart chakra has come out twice. I feel like your inner child, if your inner child in terms of being abandoned in your own childhood, yeah, right behind that I have sexual trauma and shame. So we're going to talk about these. Spending time with children, random acts of kindness. This is all about the heart chakra. And so you might find that you have a disconnect from your own children, especially if you have a pornography addiction and you have certain things that you are ashamed of. You might find that that energy brings about depression. It brings about emotional disconnection. And as a direct effect, as a result, you might not be intentionally disconnecting yourself from your children, for those of you that might have them. But this energy, it has a domino effect in terms of how it plays out in your life. And so many people might find that they do not have the emotional availability to their offspring because of the inner child within them that has yet to be healed. And they're so overly focused on becoming abandoned or neglected within their relationship, and dealing with the shame and the guilt that's attached to what they're doing, that they end up neglecting their children. So spending time with your children, random acts of kindness, is ways to open up the heart chakra so that you can heal from past pain, traumas, abandonment, and things of that nature. Then you also have fear of losing control. That is also something that is attached with watching pornography, because I've already expressed how it causes an overactive root chakra, which deals with the fight or flight energy. It deals with survival. That's what the root chakra is all about. And so when it's blocked, or if it's overactive, it's going to put you in that energy of aggression. And so you fear losing control. And so you might do things like watch pornography in order to feel like you have some sort of control over at least the sexual nature of your connection, because you feel, okay, well, if I know how to do this, or if I open myself up to doing that, if I bring in a third person into the relationship, because I see that he is more stimulated when he sees threesomes versus just two, then somehow I can control the narrative of this relationship to the point where I am not abandoned later. So this is something, this is what's happening. It might not be on the forefront of people's minds in terms of putting it together in that way, but the actions based on these things, is it all comes together to make sense. And so what also came out is shame, let me say, sexual trauma and shame. So yes, a lot of people who have dealt with sexual trauma, whether it be through molestation or rape or something like that later on in their lives, deal largely, they get exposed to pornography and things of that nature at an early age, because they're overly sexualized, because someone has come in um, and misused them and abused them for their own perverted sexual gratification. They have awakened a beast within them, because they have actually transferred that energy, that soul tie that has been created through that sexual trauma that's happened to that child. They take on the lustful energy of the person that actually violated them. And so then they end up seeking out lower level energies that will match, or that will mimic that of the molestation or the sexual trauma that they experienced. And so pornography is something that many people who have been through sexual trauma end up going to pornography. And a lot of times you also end up being drawn, let's just say you're a woman who was sexually molested as a child by a man in your family. You end up gravitating more to lesbian pornography. Even if you're not a lesbian, you gravitate more to lesbian pornography, because it allows you to have pleasure, or to receive a sense of pleasure or stimulation, without having to reenact or bring into remembrance what took place between yourself and the masculine or the male that violated you. And so then that also brings about a sense of confusion. Even if you're not actually attracted to women outside of watching the pornography, you're just attracted to the stimulation of the act. It's still something that you end up being drawn and gravitating to, in order to avoid sexual stimulation through the male and female, because it causes you to relive the trauma. And so you try to avoid that by taking another route. And so that brings about the energy of shame and guilt as well. And so these types of things, that will also cause you to have a disconnect from your own children, because you feel as if there's certain things that's within you that causes you, and then you become bogged down and very heavy with that energy. The more that you retain it and keep it in, and you have yet to find a way to escape it. Okay, so when it comes to the sacral chakra, healing the sacral chakra, you can use crystals like citrine, anything that's orange, carnelian, tiger's eye. You can also do hip rotational type of movements. In terms of sexual trauma, if this is one of the issues, you can write down those things that was attached to that traumatic event that took place in your life, whenever it was, whether it's as a very early age or up into adulthood. And you can also write down a person that violated you, write their name down. I release the sexual trauma attached to the particular person. I release all lust, all energies of grief, shame, guilt, and what you can write down everything that comes to your mind intuitively. I release all fear. I release all sexual detachment. I release all sexual blockages. And you want to write down in spirit and in flesh, and you burn it. Okay. And as you watch it burn, you're watching it with the intentions that you are now releasing that energy from your life in the spiritual realm as well as in the physical realm. And so that you can begin the healing process. Okay. Because that's that fire. Using the element of fire is actually a way, because you are also talking about the sacral chakra, which is orange. That's also that passionate energy. Okay. Which is that fiery energy that's attached to sexual energy. So you're using that as a way of releasing and destroying that energy from your life, so that you can now begin to rebuild yourself and to have a healthier way of experiencing sex and a healthier perspective of sex as well. And another thing that just came to mind, this is kind of off topic, but it does come together at the same time, is that when it comes to the connection with your children, a lot of times if you've had sexual trauma, you'll have a difficult time even breastfeeding, okay? Because then you end up having this connection to sexuality and trauma that you experienced as a child. And so you want to try to, it's like a feeling where you want to disconnect the two at all costs, even if it means not being able to nourish your child in that way. And so it's so many different facets to this, so many different layers to this. I'm going to pull one more card though. Well, let's see. I really didn't want to take this many, but I'll just go ahead. Solar plexus, depression and anxiety. So we talked about that low vibrational energy, mental disorder, feeling as if your mind and your thoughts are off balance, okay? And then difficulty hearing intuitive messages. That's also dealing with the throat chakra. And so we talked about the root. We talked about the throat. Solar plexus deals with your confidence and your courage within yourself, and your ability, your personal power. And so in order to heal the solar plexus, you can use crystals such as citrine. You can wear yellow. You can meditate on the color yellow. You can sun gaze. You can write down, I am courageous, I am powerful. Affirmations of power and personal strength is very important. That'll help you with your solar plexus. So that's what I have for you all. I hope this message was able to resonate with you and that it was able to bring some understanding in how you can release yourself if you yourself are experiencing pornography addiction, or if you have been inviting it into your relationships, so you can understand how it affects you, how it affects conception, how it affects us for generations, and how it has been giving the powers that were power for generation after generation. It's time for us to take our power back and to start here, okay? So I love you all. If you want a private reading, you can always email me. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribes. Thank you for the donations to my channel. And I will talk to you all next time.